Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Happy Moment. My name is Dan. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I'm going to be talking about the new Dragonlance book, Dragons of Deceit. And to do so, I brought a couple friends to help me out. I have Amy from Fantasy Fiction Fanatics making her second appearance on the show. Hi, Amy.
Hey, nice to be back. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. And then joining me for the first time, but hopefully not the last time, we have Turbo. Hey, Turbo.
Hey everyone.
Turbo is a singer and cosplayer extraordinaire, by the way. And I'm glad to have both of you with me today. Fair warning to everybody, we will be discussing spoilers. So whatever is in Dragons of Deceit, anything goes. If you have not read the book yet, but you're curious to find out more without having things spoiled, Amy, I believe you do a non-spoiler review on your YouTube channel?
Yes, I have one on my YouTube channel and on my blog, so either place is a good one to have a non-spoiler review.
Okay, awesome. And let's dive right into Dragons of Deceit. But first of all, I just want to say it's awesome that we have this book. We waited a long time for a new Dragonlance book, especially one from Margaret, Weis, and Tracy Hickman. It's been too long, so it's very exciting that we have this. Amy, what kind of expectations did you have going into Dragons of Deceit?
Well, it's been obviously, like you said, a long time since we've read a new Dragonlance book. In fact, I'm usually only read Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman's Dragonlance books. I haven't read by any other authors, so it's been a long time for me. So I was just more excited to have new content, something I hadn't read before. I didn't really have, per se, any expectations other than what was in the synopsis, but I was just more excited to finally have something new and that it would include characters that I already know and love.
How about you, Turbo? Were you pretty excited for the new book?
Yeah, I was really shocked actually after all like the issues that they had with the lawsuits or just court cases in general. So I was surprised that it was even happening. So when it actually did happen, I was like, oh, yay! And yeah, it was just my expectations, I guess, were like, it's them. They started this. So it was,
I know, it was almost too good to be true.
Love it. Right, yeah, exactly. Like I was like, okay, this could be really great. And that's basically where I kept my expectations.
Yeah. And one quick thing I want to mention is this is a fantasy novel, and we all, I'm sure, have our different ways of pronouncing some of the names. So if you have a different pronunciation than what I pronounce the name, don't worry about it. Just use whatever way that you've been using it, whatever way you're most comfortable with. The people who are listening will know who we're talking about. And so our story is about Destina Rosethorn. She is a daughter of a Solomonic knight, Sir Gregory, and her mother is an Argothian. Her name is Atieno. Ultimately, what happens is Sir Gregory goes to the High Clearest Tower, where he is killed. Up to that point, Destina has had a somewhat privileged life living at the castle with her father and her mother. Turbo, what are your early observations on Destina Rosethorn? Did you like her in the beginning?
Yeah, I did actually. I was a little bit wary of her, but then it kind of reminded me of how like if if the Majeris were allowed to grow up more privileged, that's kind of how the family kind of reminded me of. So I was like, okay, this is a good, it was like the Stern, like the Brave Blade and the Majeris had a combined household. So I liked that immediately. I was like, all right.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed early on, it had a little bit of a slower start than some other books in the series.
Yes, I absolutely did feel that way. That was something that was kind of surprising for me in the fact that, especially if we're going back to Chronicles, which is the original series, like you are pretty much thrown right in to the events,
yes,
with just a little bit of build up to them. But I felt like this book was a little underwhelming in its beginning. You're right, it's all the attorneys, it's all the story building, and it is important to understand those things for the plot that comes later, but I just felt like for a Dragonlance book, it was a very slow start.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself liking or disliking Destin in the beginning?
I kind of was neutral toward her. I will say I think I felt the same way about her at the beginning and the same way I felt about her at the end was just kind of bland for me. I don't feel like she really made a super big impression as of yet. I mean, obviously there's going to be more books, so maybe that will change, but at least so far I feel like she's kind of just a bland character.
Once Gregory is killed at the High Clerist's Tower, which is the same battle where Sturm Brightblade perishes, Destina's life kind of gets turned upside down. She has a distant relative who is a bit crooked and claims ownership of the castle. She has to leave ultimately. But in the castle, her father had a library, and in that library, she read about something called the device of time journeying. And she gets this crazy idea into her head that maybe she can travel back in time and save her father somehow. Turbo, what did you think of that plan that Destina had to travel back in time? Did you think it was a bit kind of wild? Did you think she was crazy for thinking she could pull it off?
Well, personally, I lost my dad around the same age as her. I mean, like, not exactly, but so, like, I could completely understand why she would do that and why she'd want to do that. So I agree with the rating on her being a little bit bland. And that's why I kept giving her like excuses because I'm like, oh no, I sympathize, I understand. But I was like, at the same time, I'm like, no, it's the device of time journey, and we all know where this goes in other books. Don't touch it. like you're like shaking the book, like don't do it. So like it was very stressful. I was like, no, don't. So
She ends up traveling to uh, the city of Palanthas, and she goes to the Great Library, and she meets an aesthetic named Cairn, who he'll make another appearance later on in the book. And she also meets a renegade mage named Ungar, who says that if Destina brings him the Grey Gem of Gargeth and the device of time journeying, he can help send her back in time. At that point, she, with the help of a dragon named Saber, she travels to the dwarven kingdom of Thorbarden, where the Grey Gem is supposedly hidden. And Amy, at that point in the book, that's where I feel things started to pick up the pace a little bit and start to get pretty interesting. Do you think that's about the time you got interested in it too?
I definitely agree. I think maybe a little bit before that was a little bit more interesting in the fact that we did have the whole discovery of like the gray gem and like him with that clock and stuff. But as far as the actual like adventure goes, I definitely feel like the adventure started when she went to the dwarves, which makes sense because now she's actually like on her quote quote journey to try and get back in time. So I guess it definitely makes sense that the adventure is starting there, and that's when we definitely do see a little bit more of the excitement happening.
Her adventure in Thorbarden got off to a bit of a rocky start because she has a meeting with the king of Thorbarden, King Hornfell, and she's kind of dishonest with him, and he called her out on it. He introduces her to a dwarf by the name of Wolfstone, who is a bit of a shady character. Turbo, what do you think of Wolfstone?
oh gosh. I was just like, oh, crumbs, Umgar, and now Wolfstone. They, oh, is there if I just answer for both of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
because like they were both, they felt kind of classic, silent film villains, where they're like lurking in the background, and all you see is their shadow, and you're like, no, you shouldn't be meddling with them, and you shouldn't be lying to them and tricking them. So, but they're exciting. Like, it was exciting to have such vibrant, you don't know what side they're on kind of characters again.
Yeah, and despite Wolfstone's somewhat mysterious demeanor, he does help Destina. They are able to recover the Grey Gem. Once they leave Thorbarden, they end up at the home of Dugan Redhammer, who we know as the god Reorx. Dugan's an interesting dwarf. At first, he wants to keep the Grey Gem. There's a bit of a mishap where the Grey Gem gets cracked a little bit. Uh, Amy, do you have any thoughts on that scene? I thought it was kind of amusing myself.
I just love how it's the god that messes everything up at this point. You'd think that he was a little bit smarter, a little bit more able to handle things considering, but obviously his excitement and a little bit of his greed got in the way of that.
And ultimately, Dugan decides that, well, maybe it's best if Destina hangs on to the Grey Gem. Really what his ulterior motive is to try and prevent the other gods from finding out what's going on. At that point, we get taken to a place that's very familiar to all of us Dragonlance fans, the town of Solus and the Inn of the Last Home, where we meet some familiar characters. Destina is there because she believes that Tasselhoff Burrfoot, everybody's favorite Kender, has the device of time journeying, and she tries to dupe Tass. She has a magical item that allows her to shapeshift a little bit, so she transforms herself into Mary Merryweather the Kender. And Amy, what follows is quite an interesting scene where Destina accidentally ends up as the husband, supposedly, to Tasselhoff Burrfoot, and we get a big song and dance celebration.
I will say that is my favorite scene in this whole book. Hands down, I love it. I love how Tass is just not listening to her. He's just declaring that she is married to him. And then he goes yells out into the world, and apparently all these Kinder just come running. And I'm like, where were all these Kinder just waiting for this announcement? And the song is wonderful. I will say I was cracking up the whole time. It was a stunning Tass moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got Kendra crawling out of the woodwork there. Did you like that scene, Turbo? Did you enjoy that scene?
Oh my gosh, I loved it. I loved it so much. It was adorable. The song was great, and it was just, you're like, oh, Tasselhoff, no. And you want them to work together. I like them together. I like the idea of it, but not with her as who she is. It's a whole thing. I love it.
And while we're at the Inn of the Last Home, we meet a couple of other familiar faces, Karaman and Tika. Tika is a bit suspicious of Destina. She tells Karaman, who doesn't really buy into it at first. Destina has a bit of a issue when she finds out that Tasselhoff no longer has the device of time journeying. He gave it to Astonis at the Great Library, and she actually loses her transformation spell, and she starts turning back into her human form. Tass refuses to believe that they are the same person. He is very steadfast in his belief that he is married to Mary Merryweather, and Destina is some strange human that possibly kidnapped Mary. I feel a little bit bad for Tass. He thinks he has himself a wife, but not quite. I guess it depends on how you want to interpret Kendra law. They end up leaving Solus. They travel to Planthas. Meanwhile, we are introduced to another old friend, Tanis Half-Elven. It's good seeing these old characters, and also, Amy, it's kind of sad, in a way, because we kind of know how their stories play out.
I guess I didn't really feel any sadness for it. I just felt more happy and more nostalgia to see them again. I think Tika and Karaman are in a really good place, and the fact that we see them, at least with Legends, they're struggling, their marriage is struggling, and then Caramon has to go through, that journey in order to get back and to be satisfied with his life. So I think that was nice for me. I mean, obviously, Tanis is, off with Lorana, and so it's nice to see him come back and to have a moment of friendship again. So I see what you're coming from with possibly the sadness of like knowing what their futures are, but at the same time, I feel like and the place that they're at was just really happy and nostalgic to see them again in the prime of their life, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. And another old character that I neglected to mention a little bit earlier, who also returned, is one of my favorites, Dalamar the Dark. Turbo, are you a fan of Dalamar?
Oh my gosh, I love Dalamar. So when I saw him again, I was like, that makes sense, because he's normally, he's kind of taken the place as the black-robed mage in, Dragonlance, following everything that happened with Graceland. So I love him. He is sassy, and to see him just realize that he's stuck in this whole loop again is hysterical, because he's still got that like bitterness. Like, we have Caramon and Tika and Tanis and Lariana, as you said, all in a very good place. Like, they're doing well, they're well adjusted, but there's Dalamar with his mop and broom out again, going, oh great.
Dalamar, he's suspicious of Ungar and actually ends up imprisoning him at the tower. He knows that Ungar is a renegade mage and he's up to no good because he's been doing research on the Grey Gem and the device. So Ungar ends up imprisoned by Dalamar. Once we're in Planthes, Destina decides that she needs to find a way to get to that device of time journeying, and she more or less breaks in and into the room where it's being held, and she snatches control of it, and she actually succeeds in activating it. Amy, did you think that she would be successful in getting that far?
I assumed she was going to be successful just because, how else would we have a story that way? Especially because she has Tass's help, and we know Tass is excellent on getting his hands on things. But I did find it surprising on the how. I didn't really expect it to be. I mean, I guess I should have expected it to be a break-in with Tass involved, but I feel like it kind of was a little bit of a crazy, chaotic event there, and I don't think I totally expected it to be quite such a chaotic running around and then like it kind of going, activating the device while people are still yelling and running for you. Like, it was definitely all over the place.
Yeah, it was chaotic, and I think it was she knocks out Karen, doesn't she?
Yes,
she bops him on the head and knocks him out. Yeah, and poor Karen, Karen has a bit of a crush on Destin, I think, and he just wants to help her out, but he wasn't prepared to help her get to the device of time journeying, so she took matters into her own hands. From there, we get transported back into basically the beginning of the Chronicles and Dragons of Autumn Twilight, where the heroes of the Lance, or most of them, are meeting at the inn. Turbo, I thought it's kind of neat to see all of them gathered there again. I didn't expect the device to send her there at first. Did you see that coming?
No, not at all. I was completely shocked and started sobbing, to be honest. I had to put the book down. I was so emotional. I was like, here of all times? They're really going for the heartstrings pulled, and they did a good job. It was perfect.
Yeah. Things are a little bit different than what we remembered it as, because I believe Fizban was missing.
I was just going to ask if either of you guys were scared, because when I saw us coming back to the beginning of Chronicles, I was scared. I was like, what's going to happen? Are we going to mess up time? This is where it begins, where everything is going to go wrong.
Turbo, were you scared at all?
That's part of the reason why I was sobbing. Because I was like, this could be one of the biggest retcons in fantasy and like science fiction, like history, basically. If anything from that timeline is changed, like that could change everything. And it was that sobbing of like, oh, it was perfect though, and then that sobbing of, oh, but what could they do differently? And I'm a very emotional person.
I hadn't even thought of that point about everything being retconned if things got changed too drastically. So I wasn't scared, but I'm glad I hadn't thought of that. Otherwise, I probably would have been.
That was my first thought. I was like, oh no, like this is gonna change things and it's gonna not be fun. And then when Fizban was missing too, I was like, this is even worse. How is the journey gonna start if there's no Fizban?
I'm so happy to hear that. Sorry.
And Tasselhoff, he's eager to introduce her to his friends, which isn't what she wanted. She did not want a meeting with all of the heroes of the Lance. So that was a very awkward position that she was put in. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Amy, I think she tries using she has this friendship ring that she used on Tass, and now she's trying to use it on Sturm, I believe.
Did she try to use it on him? I thought that she had lost that ring, or Tass had lost the ring. Maybe I'm forgetting that she got it back.
I thought she had tried to deceive Sturm somehow, but Raistlin caught her in the act.
That's what I think so.
Yeah, wasn't it with one of the potions, though?
Maybe, yeah. I might be remembering that incorrectly. I think
it might have been with the potion.
Okay,
or I could be also remembering it incorrectly. Turbo, do you remember?
No, I'm actually like, I grab my book. I'm like, wait a minute. I know where this is, and I can't think.
He slipped one of the potions into his drink.
That sounds familiar.
What he caught.
Yeah,
The reason she was upset was because Tass lost the ring, and she's like, "Where'd the ring go?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. It just came off my finger eventually, I guess." He's like, "Then don't worry, we're still married."
Yeah, that definitely rings a bell. Sorry, I got things a little mixed up there.
No, it's okay. I mean, I only read it once so far. Yeah, it's a potion, as far as I can tell. As far as I can see. So I don't mean to be like, I put out the novel. I was just like, right there.
You were more prepared than... You were like, I'm ready to reference.
I just get so excited talking about this, so I apologize if I'm all over the place.
You're fine.
But don't quote me 100%, because I just looked at a page, and it's like, why did I even try to use that? And especially in front of Raistlin. Like, come on. If you know anything about him, why even attempt sleight of hand in front of the sleight of hand master?
At that point, there's a bit of a catastrophe as the device of time journeying becomes activated again, and it actually ends up shattering, but not before Destina, Tass, Sturm, and Raistlin are transported back in time. They actually get sent back to the time of Huma and the Third Dragon War. And I believe what happens is Karen ends up back at the present time. Does that sound right, Turbo?
I thought he ended up at the inn at the last home with, like, Caramon and everybody else. That's, I think.
That's what happens. Yeah, he goes back with them, but then when they do the time traveling again, yes, he does make it back with like half the device.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, he's just like kind of left, and that's just so confusing. Everybody's left somewhere different.
Yeah, time travel can be a little odd sometimes, but they all end up where they are, and Destina and her group, they actually see Huma, which for Sturm, I imagine that was quite a shock. Amy, how do you think he felt actually seeing basically his idol?
I definitely think he probably was in shock. I feel like he, at least at this point, is a little disbelieving. Like, I don't think he totally grasps where he's at and how he got here. I mean, I know I wouldn't if I'm just randomly somehow back in time and don't understand who the people are that were with him. But I think I think it'll be definitely an interesting development moving forward. So I feel like at this point we just kind of see a glimpse of him and his astonishment and his finally understanding where he's at. And then I think it'll be more interesting to see what happens in the next novel for that.
Yeah. And Turbo, what did you think of that ending where we have Astinus having somewhat of a meeting with Tanis, Dalamar? Dalamar's planning on, I think, trying to fix the device of time journeying. How did the ending make you feel, Turbo?
It was again, I burst into tears because again, I was realizing I'm like, everything could be retconned and everything's a mess. Not in a mean way of a mess, just like chaos. And then you're thinking about the chaos gems going back in time at a very, very huge event in the entire world of like Kryn. And so when they were all having that meeting, Estinius, I think, is just attempting to hold himself together because he realizes the magnitude of everything. And Dalamar as well, because they've all been through all this stuff. And it's just a lot to process for everybody. Yeah, the complications. They always say it's just a drop, but it's like, that's not a drop. That's a whole bunch of, especially with their names being written there in the battle. It's a lot.
Yeah. Amy, did you like the ending?
I liked the ending. I feel like I have more. It more was for me like I'm ready for the next one now. Like it stopped at the most inopportune moment. Obviously, time as itself is going to eventually catch up and possibly crumble before our eyes. But it's more of like I have all these thoughts that I'm like, oh, I wonder about for the next book. Like we've set up a lot at this moment to lead into what's going to be happening next, and so I feel like I definitely felt at the end more like, okay, now I've been set up to where I need to be excited for the next one.
Yeah, they ended it on one heck of a cliffhanger, that's for sure. Turbo, where do you think they go from here in the next book? What do you think? What are your predictions for the future?
Oh gosh. That's so difficult because I know that, well, I don't know. There should be like a ton of just Raistlin and Sturm being in shock and debating whether or not they should change things, and probably Raistlin telling Sturm not to change things as much. Because I mean, Raistlin could technically prevent mages from being treated like crap in the future. And that's such a huge thing. And then Sturm could prevent Nahuma from like getting a little bit of his legacy tarnished on and off. I mean, he's pretty much a hero. But there's a lot that could be changed because if Magus was just allowed to have like a knife, then he could have defended himself. Because this is around that time where like the Legend of Huma takes place and all the horrible stuff. And so I think that was smart of them because there could be so much that could be done with the two characters that are very well known and very well loved. And then, of course, Tasselhoff, who's also known and loved. So, like, they got... It's genius how they have all these different main characters brought back to fight in one of the most eventful parts in Kryn history. So that's... I don't know. I don't know where they could go. And that's terrifying. Sorry for being long-winded.
No, you're okay. There's definitely a lot of possibilities here. Amy, I'd have to assume that Dalmar is going to be successful in repairing the device of time journeying, at least enough to where it can be functional again. Do you think Dalmar and Tanis are going to end up traveling back in time to find the others?
Well, I think if Dalamar is going to be the one that fixes the device, that they'll have to in order to get them back from the past. I don't have much of a idea of how the present day quote quote is going to be affected. That's the part that I'm most like. I feel like I'm most in the dark about how this change will affect the timeline that we know and love. But I do think definitely it'll be a group effort on both parts to hopefully do as little damage as possible. But we both know there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of damage. we wouldn't have a story if there wasn't going to be a lot. And plus, Tass is in the past, which means you're just doomed.
Do you think in the next book, are there any older characters we haven't seen yet that you'd like to see make a comeback?
Well, Fizbin is also one of my favorites, and I would always love for him to show up. But I don't really know if that's going to fit with what they're doing or not. I mean, I don't really know much about Fizbin's other exploits like in the past. Maybe that's just because I haven't read enough other books, but I do think that it would always be great to see Fizbin again.
Definitely agree with that. And Turbo, speaking of Fizban, do you think any of the gods, like Paladine, Tachesis, or any of the others, are powerful enough to sense that something's going on with just this device of time journeying, and these people are traveling back in time? Do you think the gods are going to get involved in some way?
I think they're going to have to, because it affects everything, and if anything like helps get Tachesis back out again, they kind of have to step in, because I'd hope they would have learned from everything. And every time it's like every time the gods have to deal with Raistlin getting sent back into time, then getting sent forward, they all just like begrudgingly go, "Oh great, we gotta deal with this again because he's so powerful." So it's like you have a very powerful mage going back in time, and then with him and his knowledge, alleged knowledge of what goes on in the future, then you're wondering if he could change things too, because you have all these huge, powerful wizards, gods all on the table right now. So they basically like took every single rule set from every book they loved and just threw it out on the table and went, have at. And it's exciting. But yeah, I'm with Amy. I don't know. Maybe Fizbin might just not come back for a while. He might be off meddling again.
Yeah,
he's got to argue with
it's
some
hard
trees.
to say.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of trees to talk to.
It really is hard to say where things are going to go from here. As far as the new characters that we were introduced to, I like Wolfstone, and for someone who is on the cover of the book, I'd have to think he's going to make another appearance because he wasn't in this one a whole lot. I'm not sure how he would fit back into this story, but I do hope we get to see him again. Amy, did you have a favorite new character?
Sadly, I didn't have any new characters that really stood out to me as being excellent or anything like that. Mostly, I'm just hoping, since Destina is a main character, that I feel a little bit more excited about her in the next one. I hope she actually does something that makes me more excited about her and her journey. And so far, I feel like, I mean, she mostly caused a mess at this point, and though I do understand why she did it, I feel like the whole time we're thinking about like the quote where it says like, "Oh, well, you just change one little thing. I mean, what's the harm in just changing one little person in time?" Like, of course, we know that means that there's going to be more problems, that it's not just going to be one person. So at this point, I just feel like she's just made a mess of things and hasn't even gotten to try to complete her goal. So she's the person I'm hoping will redeem herself and will be somebody worth talking about more from the next book.
Yeah, she really did make a mess of things, and she went through quite a big change in her arc for this book. She started out as kind of this, I don't know, innocent girl. Things happen, and by the end of the book, she's manipulating people, doing some some bad things. But Turbo, you kind of alluded to this earlier. I found her to be relatable in that manner because, I mean, I know I would, if I had the chance to go back in time and bring back a loved one, heck yeah, I'd go for it. I wouldn't be worrying about whose toes I step on along the way. So in that respect, I found her to be relatable. Turbo, did you have a favorite new character?
Um, yeah, yeah and no. Like, I feel that they didn't get enough time, even though like the first part of the book was slower, definitely. Um, I feel as though we are watching a character grieving in real time, so we're not really getting the full effect of who Destina can be. But I mean, it's in her name, so there's something that she could become. I think with being around Sturm and like other Solnic Knights, like it might help her realize more where Dad was coming from and maybe help her heal, and then she might change her mind and realize this is bad. But for like random characters, I really liked Karn, and I'm really kind of mad that we just got him for a little while and then he just basically got left. Because he's interesting. There's something about him that's so like the word scrappy. I guess he's scrappy. And whenever you get like people like that in the world of Dragonlance, they either get a little part or he could have a bigger part to play. So I'm curious. I think everybody has a lot of potential. I just don't think anybody was allowed to show it yet.
Yeah, I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of him. I think he'll be back. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if he joins Dalamar and Tannison or whoever else in going back in time to rescue Destina and the others. So I think we'll definitely see a lot more of him in book two. But one of the things I like about this new series is I I can't even begin to predict how things are going to play out. Like I genuinely have no idea. There's so many different directions this could take. Uh, Amy, ultimately, do you think Destina will be successful in bringing her father back?
I don't think she will, honestly. I think that being in this new time, especially if they work it to where like she's going to be part of a battle or something, be more engaged with the knighthoods, I think she will come to understand her father's choice, and that she's not going to try and move forward to his time to bring him back. I think that she's going to have an evolution of some kind, or at least I'm hoping, that's what I'm hoping for, is that she's going to have an evolution of some kind, and then she's going to be able to relate to her father's choice to stay and fight.
I like that answer. I think that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Turbo, do you think that she'll be successful?
No. I don't think she's gonna do it. I agree with Amy. I think she's gonna just change her. I think she's gonna realize that it's just not the right path to take. And her father even knew, because he knew his wife was a seer, and he still went on with the battle and stuff, knowing that in order for everybody else to succeed, he must lose and surrender himself. And that it's depressing and it's sad and it's devastating, but it's what he chose. He knew, ultimately. And she's kind of, it sounds so mean to say, but she's disrespecting his decision. I think it'd be good, very emotional if she got to speak with him again, but I think ultimately she's not going to succeed with bringing him back.
Yeah, I have a hard time thinking that she will be successful in that. Uh, there is one thing that I wanted to mention that there was it was kind of spoken about briefly, and that was when Dugan Redhammer accidentally cracks the Grey Gem, and he says that a little bit of chaos may have escaped. Uh, Amy, what do you think anything will come from that?
I think we're already seeing the results of chaos escaping a little bit. I think that is what started this whole at least breaking of the time device is chaos. I mean, even when they're at the end of the last home, and I know that Disney is a little bit like frantic because she's trying to get out of this time before she can't. But I mean, it's like they're all kind of like she's trying to reach for Tass. Tass is trying to kind of like do the thing, and then there's all the other players of like Rasslin trying to be like, what are you guys doing? Like, who are you? And stuff like that. So it's already the chaos of everything going on in that moment. and the chaos of them getting the device even that causes them to go to the wrong time and then to explode the device. And so I think we're already seeing the results of more chaos.
That's true. I do have a little bit of a theory. There's probably not much credence to it, but it's just something that popped into my mind. And there's probably very little chance of it happening just because it would be kind of a dark ending, and I don't think Weiss and Hickman would do that. But by having a little bit of chaos escape, I'm wondering if maybe there's a few chaos creatures that somehow escaped out into the world. Maybe one of them ends up killing Destina at the end, and that's why in Chronicles there's no mention of her because she was erased by one of the Chaos Wraiths. You know, one of the creatures that when they kill someone, all memories of that person go away. So just a theory. It's probably no chance of it happening, but it's just something that popped into my mind. I know it'd be kind of a dark ending, but Trevor, what do you think of that?
Actually, part of that cut out for me, but I heard the whole part about like somebody killing Destina and then the Chaos Wraith, and that's so dark, but it could happen. It's absolutely plausible because there's so much history beyond what happened in Chronicles and Legends, so that's entirely possible. And with Chaos, like, you have two very strong-minded characters of their own accord back in time with her who probably don't care about her because she's the future and like they don't know anything of her from the future. Well, but depending on what headspace they're both in, but I think Raceland's at, I don't know if I can spoil like way future books or not, so
We'll just keep it to Dragons of Deceit spoilers for now.
yeah.
Amy, any final thoughts you'd like to add on this book?
I guess my only real main thought for the next book is like I think we're gonna see a parallel so we also have Huma, who has a best friend who's a mage, and now we have a knight and a mage who hate each other, but I think my main guess is that they're gonna become friends and they're gonna have more of an understanding of each other. So I wanted to mention that. And I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention is that, at least based on my channel and people who have been commenting after my reviews, is that a lot of people have actually mentioned to me that they think that Tass is out of character in this book. And I'd be interested to hear if you guys feel the same way or not.
What do you think, Turbo?
Oh my gosh. Dang. Yeah, a little bit. 'Cause he is like super convinced that he's married to her, and we've never really heard too much about Kender marriage, to be honest, before. Like, I mean, Tasselhoff's mom, like, lost him somewhere, right? I think that's what happened. So it's like, we don't really know about much of this, and he is kind of like a bit extra, like a bit more than he usually is. A little more forgetful and outgoing and just passive with a lot of things that should normally make Tasselhoff stop and, you know, with his curiosity, just get the best of him. And he's not. So, wow, that's really good theories. But I guess I'll circle back with the whole two people that hate each other. I was like, how dare you put Stern with Raceland? I was like, this is so rude. But it's perfect because, you know, they were the other two best friends, and I really want more of Magus, or Magus, sorry, I never know which way to pronounce it. I want more of him so bad, because basically all we get is of him in Legends, so, you know, that's gotta be awesome to be able to see more of him, because I feel like we know so much about Huma from that. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I thought Tasselhoff was in character, I guess to put it. I didn't think he was off too much. He may have been a little more doorknobbish than usual in his refusal to accept that Mary is actually a real Kender. Um, but I don't know. Maybe that was just a aspect of tasks that we never got to see before. Maybe he really wanted to get married and we just didn't know about it. I don't know.
Hmm.
Um,
I
I don't know.
agree with
It's poor
that a
Tess.
little bit. I feel
Yeah.
like he really like I think he really likes Mary, and I think maybe that was part of him refusing to believe um that Mary was not who said she was, just because she really he really wanted to maybe be married to her. I don't know. I didn't really think when I was reading it that he seemed out of character, but then when people mentioned it, I was like, I guess that's true. He was acting more like he's never actually dumb. Like I actually think in many ways Tass is more intelligent and more noticing of the important things than a lot of other characters. So I guess I can definitely see, once people brought my attention to it, that it did seem like he was being more stupid than normal, more not putting the pieces together. But maybe part of me wonders if he really does know and just is pretending that he doesn't. I don't know.
And how much of it too would be the influence from that friendship ring? Because
That's true
Oh
too.
I mean,
yeah.
Destina puts that on him. I think pretty early on in their meeting. Of course,
Right.
even after he loses the ring, he hasn't changed at all. But maybe he just got used to the idea of liking Mary and believing that she was real, and so even without the ring, it just kind of stuck with him. I don't know. It's hard to say. Just another aspect of the story that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Will he ever realize that Mary is not real and that's actually Destina? Or will I hope he does, because I feel like if he keeps on the path that he's going, it might get kind of tired by the third book if he's still.
What I was hoping for, now this is not what happened, but what I was hoping for was that he was going to like be okay being married to Destina. Like he was going to realize that and be like, okay, well, Destina's my wife then, like, and just run with that. And that was going to be a different problem. But it ended up being more of they made it the confusing of like, oh, she's not the same person. But I literally was like, is he going to just be fine being married to a human? Or like, is that going to be now like, okay, I'm married to her then instead? But that didn't end up happening. That would have been fun though, I think.
Mhm.
I agree. That's so cute. Sorry.
Maybe it's possible that Destina actually falls in love with Tass. Maybe they end up happily ever after. I don't know.
Oh.
That would be interesting, that's for sure.
Time to start the petitions, please. We need Hasselhoff married.
Someone got on the phone with Margaret and Tracy right now. We got to make this happen. Turbo, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
This is a ridiculous final thought, I guess. But I was like, when I was attempting to figure out what happened again right there, I remembered like one of my favorite parts, and it's when all like when Mari and Sturm and Raceland and all get sent back to Tasselhoff, and they all basically are yelling no and grabbing basically each other's arms, so they're making like a Scooby-Doo like scene of going through basically like a portal, and I just remember laughing really hard at that. So I guess that's like that was so classic Dragonlance. Like just it was very hysterical, and I completely almost forgot about that scene. So I guess that's kind of my final thoughts on it. Is I'm excited for what's to come. I'm also terrified because I'm staring at all these books and going, my babies, you're gonna change my babies. But I'm fine with that. I really am. I just, there's like that little like nostalgic regret and then the excitement of something new.
Yeah, I thought this book was great. It definitely brought back a lot of memories, and it took us through a variety of emotions. It was definitely fun. I'm looking forward to the next one. And when the next book does come out, maybe both of you can join me again and we can discuss that one as well. But I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. And Amy, if people would like to learn more about Fantasy Fiction Fanatics, where can they do that?
Yeah, they can go to Facebook or Twitter are the two best places right now. Or they can do my Instagram, but it doesn't have as much. All of it is under @or/slash fantasy fiction one. And they can also join our Discord, which you are a part of, and I can you can hand out a link to everybody if they want to go ahead and join that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And Turbo, thank you for joining me as well. Is there any links or websites that you'd like to share, or where can people find more about you?
Oh, I'm just on Twitter. I'm just on Twitter, Skeletron Turbo or Turbo Skeletron. And then I guess if anyone's interested in like my little ditties from Dragonlance, then that's on Melkor Majere on YouTube.
That would be Melkormajere for anyone that's not familiar with the spelling. And I would definitely recommend people check out Fantasy Fiction Fanatics and check out Turbo's page. She has some great songs on there. She's got a great voice. She also has a very fun song that she recently created on her own about about the great debate on minotaurs and whether or not they have hooves or feet. So it's a very fun song, so check that out. And again, thank you both so much for joining me today. It's been great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And to all the listeners, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to interact with me, you can do so on Twitter @ahappymomentpod. Until next time, hope you have fun reading Dragonlance, and we'll see you later. Bye.